wale ya bumi soja, 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 wale. If you fight and run away, and me and you go.
Record us.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, please, we can hear you.
Okay. So we're waiting for the second panelist to join. As soon as he joins, we'll
good afternoon.
Yeah. Okay, but because of time, I think we'll just start. As soon as the second panelist is available to join us, then he will make his contribution. If it's okay, Dr. Kumbalonah, we can start, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Okay, so it's been recorded. So good afternoon, everyone. You're welcome to this edition of the Author Spotlight event of the West African Transitional Justice Center. This is one of our flagship programs where we try to bring scholars and practitioners in the area of social justice, specifically as it relates to our own interventions on transitional justice, to come and discuss the products of their research. This fits into the goal of our center to bridge the gap between the research and practice of transitional justice within the West African corridor, the African continent, and of course, globally. So we're fortunate today to have in our midst an author who has written something that's quite topical and very relevant to our experience as Africans. We have Dr. Abobo Kumbalonah of West Virginia University in the United States, join us to share the products of his research on Afro-minimalism, how Black people are conditioned to enjoy poverty. I think this is very important because, like he wrote in the description of the book, we need to go beyond imperialism of the slavery and colonialism in defining Africans' experience of poverty globally. Graciously, we've had Mr. Abdul-Muumin Sualihu of the College of Education in Ghana, EP College of Education in Ghana, join us as one of the discussants, as well as Dr. Yacoubou Alou, who is an associate professor of English literature at the University of Zinda in Niger. We thank both of our discussants for also graciously accepting to help us share their thoughts on this very important work. We hope that the second discussion will join us soon. We have Dr. Alou here already. But in order to be able to manage our time, we'll just kickstart the process by inviting Dr. Kumbalonah to give us the details or to give us some tidbits from his research. Dr. Kumbalonah, you have the platform.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I think from the schedule that I had, it looks like I have only about 20 minutes to speak. So I'm going to be making some wide leaps. Hopefully in the course of the discussions and stuff like that, we'll be able to, or even my co-panelists can chip in some ideas to sort of bridge the gap. I'm going to hit on some main points, and even with that, I will try to be as brief as I can, and hopefully that will give us some time to at least introduce the idea, and then we'll have time to engage with one another in the question and answer session. Okay, so basically, Afro-minimalism. The concept around it is that, well, as with almost any construct, you need to have a definition. The definition that I have for this philosophy or this idea, this theory that I'm trying to develop, is a mindset that creates or perpetuates poverty as a normal part of Black living. And I say perpetuates poverty, not necessarily in economic sense. Well, yes, economic sense is very important, but also in terms of institutional poverty. The confidence, the level of confidence that we have in our own institutions and systems as Africans across the world. Any sort of behavior, any sort of culture, any sort of mindset that devalues those things count as part of this concept that I'm trying to develop. I will explain this idea. This whole idea has come from many experiences that I have had. One of it, which I will use to explain, and I'm sure you probably, as I explain this, you probably will remember one or two scenarios that might fit into this. I was in Ghana for a while. Well, I'm from Ghana, so I go to Ghana often. And when I am in Ghana, one of the things that I struggle to find is milk, like raw milk. Quite interestingly, there's this cattle rancher who lives close to where I live. So he has a lot of cattle. And I would go to him and say, I want some milk. And he would tell me, oh, yeah, tomorrow. I'll give you milk tomorrow. Come tomorrow. Oh, and I'll go tomorrow. Oh, you should have come early in the morning. And then I'll go again. Oh, yeah. Oh, they are gone out to graze. You know, the animals are not here. So come in the evening. Well, eventually, well, I didn't get any. And so, you know, that experience, and it wasn't just him. A number of other cattle rearers that I encountered and asked about the possibility of buying. It's not even, I'm not taking it for free, of buying milk from them. And it seemed like it was a foreign idea to them. So, you know, needless to say that I didn't get it. In some instances, I did get some, but I had to basically, I don't know the right word for it, harvest. I had to personally harvest the cow, and the cow is not going to be sitting down waiting for me to harvest. So, you know, I could get as little as I could. But, you know, once I compared that to the experience in America, where milk seems to be, I mean, the farmers are really willing to sell milk, you know? So that got me thinking that what's the difference between the African rancher or, you know, cowboy and then the American or Western cowboy? It looks like there's an attitude. The attitude is that the African is raising cow as part of life. It's like a cultural thing. While the American or the Westerner is actually raising cow as a business, as something of economic value. So I even recently learned that what is it called? Is it America? No, actually, it's India. India exports cow dung to America and to Australia, and cow dung is used for fertilizer as well as biogas. I was very much surprised about that, because cow dung is like a byproduct, which people are still making money out of. I was surprised about that. Now, even take the byproduct out of it, the main product, which is the meat, milk. Among African ranchers, meat is, maybe they might kill an animal maybe on a festive occasion, or maybe the animal gets hit by something, or maybe it's in some kind of imminent death, then it will be killed. And then the meat will become available. But here in America, it's, you know, meat is the selling of meat, the selling of milk, even the you know, other products that are made out of milk, like butter, like sour cream, like yogurt, cheese. These are things that the farmers are constantly trying to sell. So they are diversifying the products that they get out of what they do, which is cattle rearing. In our case, it's not like that. It looks like we are just okay with maybe a little milk here and there, and selling something, you know, once a while and making a little money. So there's a frame of mind which is not really focused on producing for commercial benefits. You know, at the very least, we can say it's not producing for large scale economic benefit. And that is not only, you know, the reality of cattle rearers in Africa. Every farmer, it goes with farmers. They plant just for subsistence living. So it's even fisher folks do the same. They produce, they get the catch that they need to be sustainable, not really for the purpose of maybe becoming rich. You know, becoming rich is not really something that the people who are into these enterprises or these engagements actually they might say they want to become rich, but their practices seem like they don't. So these are the ideas that kind of got my attention, and I observed it across many places and across many domains of economic life, and that got me thinking about this concept of Afro-minimalism. About 100 years ago, W.E.B. Du Bois said something which is very profound and connects with what has been my experience, and based upon which I've been trying to develop this theory. He said that Africa is a happy place, and he said this in 1925. Africa is a happy place. The masses of its folk are calmly contented. I mean, that is a spot on description. It's like what I have been observing. It's like what people engage in economic activities, but they are not really under any pressure. They are not stressed out to gain more. They are okay with the least that they can get. While that is not a bad thing, in fact, that is a very noble idea to be content. But the problem is that when you are dealing with a situation where, when you are dealing with another person who has the opposite idea, then you are at a disadvantage. So I say this, that if Africans had not been in contact with Europeans, perhaps this idea of being content with little would be okay, and we'll live a very comfortable life. But once Africa had the unfortunate reality of dealing with Europeans on an economic basis, leading to colonialism and all of that kind of stuff, it basically became a situation where there is one person who has a different mindset, and then another person who has a different mindset. The two came together, and the one who has the weakest mindset, which is the one who is more content, becomes the loser. So in my book, I do mention that I'm talking about Afro-minimalism, but to really contextualize this whole discussion, you have to also think of it in terms of Euro-maximalism. What I mean here is that since the encounter with Europeans, Africans do whether you like it or not, we have to deal with Europeans somehow. So what kind of mindset do you have, which based upon which you are dealing with Europeans on economic level, right? So even though my main goal is not on Euro-maximalism, but it is important to explain that a little bit so that it can fit into what I'm trying to discuss. I did not really come up with a definition for Afro-minimalism, but essentially it is the opposite of Afro-minimalism. Okay, so Euro maximalism, I look at it simply as the insatiable need for more, right? Which is the very opposite of the African mindset, which is content. The African mindset is that of contentment. We are content with the little that we have, which is great. But when you are dealing with someone who has an insatiable need for more, your framework, your mental framework, sort of places you at a disadvantage. A number of things to note here. With the Euro maximalism comes certain traits that are against Afro minimalism. Traits like, okay, so if you want more, it means that you have to go for it. So there are certain traits like competition, right? Euro maximalists enjoy competition. They want competition. They desire competition because that's the only way you can win. That's the only way you can take people's stuff, right? That's the only way you can maximize your returns, so to speak. So competition, self-sufficiency. Maximalists believe in self-sufficiency. Get enough for now so that when it's not available, you can rely on what you have, which is different from the African mindset of sharing, interdependence, right? The maximalism also enjoys, in some way, greed, right? And private ownership, right? When you compare that to Afro-maximalist traits, which will be something like interdependence, generosity. If you don't have, you share. If another person doesn't have, you share. And then maybe next time you will go, that person will be able to help you when you are in need. That is not really the case for Euro maximalists. Generosity and collective ownership, right? These are very noble ideas, very good ideas. In fact, I would say I call them humane virtues. These are things that we need as a society. But the problem is that you are dealing with people who are more powerful, who don't have those ideas, who don't share those virtues, right? So if you're going to be dealing with them, you cannot deal with them from your minimalist point of view, right? If you do that, you are going to be, you are eventually going to lose. So they are setting, what has the connection, the encounter between Europeans and Africans? What has it led to? What are some of the conditioning that I see to be promoting poverty among Black people? I'm just going to discuss one just for the sake of time. I'm going to talk about religion. There is this concept called the Matthew effect, developed by Morton, 1968. And basically, the Matthew effect says that whoever has more, when you start with more, you get more. And when you start with less, you get less. I mean, I think it's kind of a natural principle. If you are a farmer and you plant 5 seedlings, you will get 5 harvests. If you plant 1,000, you will get 1,000, right? That's assuming, each seed germinates and each seed actually bears just one fruit, right? So this concept of the Matthew effect basically is actually drawn from the Bible, is portrayed as a biblical concept. Now, if we look at some characteristics or differences between Christianity, which came through, at least popularized through colonialism, we see something very important going on. African religious groups or religious ideology has a different understanding of life than what Europeans brought. Among Africans, punishment, we believe that you have to live in harmony with your neighbor. You have to live in harmony with other people. You should be helpful to people. You should be, all these excellent ideas of generosity, cooperation, interdependence, collective ownership, an attitude which is against greed and stuff like that. Africans have that idea that some of these things, if you act, contrary to some of these values, you are actually working against the society in a way that you could be punished. Religiously, let me say it this way, religiously, in African cultures or religious cultures, punishment and reward is the reserve of the one who has been offended. So if I offended someone, I can choose the type of punishment. I can pray to my God or whatever it is and say that I want this person to get sick. I want this person to die. I want this person to do this. I want this person to do this. I want you to do this for me. Okay. So you have chosen the type of punishment, right? Even there are instances where the punishment actually goes beyond the offender. It might say, I want you to punish the offender and also punish the children, or if the person has family, punish them as well. So the one who is offended has an important role to play in selecting the punishment. Similarly, this person has an important role in forgiveness. There are instances where someone might go somewhere because of the person is sick or something like that, and maybe a priest might say, well, it looks like you have offended someone. So as part of the ritual, go look for that person and beg for forgiveness. In Christianity, it is the total opposite. Christianity goes around all of that. Christianity, you do not have to pray to the one you have offended. You do not have to seek the forgiveness of the one you have offended. You can go straight to God, pray for forgiveness, and God will forgive you. Now, if someone has this mindset, it means that practically, or well, let's just say in theory, this person can kill you and take your gold. And when he's about to die, he can pray for forgiveness and he will be forgiven. Which is different from what Africans believe. Africans believe that if you take it, the punishment will come to you unless the person you offended has forgiven you. Right. So if you take a look at this simple difference, it means that what they encountered, the colonial encounter between Europeans and Africans, actually Africans started off, as the losers, because Europeans would not mind killing you to get what you have. Meanwhile, you as the African have this mentality, this idea, this frame of mind that you should be a neighborly person. You should be someone who lives in peace and tranquility with your neighbor. And even you should be also welcoming and hospitable to strangers, to visitors. All right. Meanwhile, this visitor is someone who is coming in and does not care to kill you, to get your gold, to get your diamond, to get whatever it is that you have. So, if you look at this whole concept of the Matthew effect, it suggests that if you have a minimalist mindset, you are going to be getting less and less of any resource that belongs to you. But if you have a maximalist mindset, it means that you will get more of whatever that you have. And in fact, let me see if I can read this. I don't know. I think I might be running out of time, but let me read this. Where Martin's concept of the Matthew effect, where he got it from. He got it one from Luke chapter 8, verse 18, which says, to him who has more, to him who has will more be given. And from him who has not, even what he thinks that he has will be taken away. Right. And then another reading that, from the Bible, the biblical foundation of that Matthew effect is in Matthew 25, verse 29, which says, for to everyone who has will more be given, and he shall have abundantly. But from him that has not, even what he has will be taken away. So religiously, it means that these two are not compatible. This is a cultural framing, all right? This is a cultural framing that really sets the African up for failure in his encounter with Europeans. All right. I will stop here, and then my co-panelists can add on to it, and then in the course of the discussion, perhaps we can talk more.
Thank you, Dr. Kumbalonah, for your wonderful insights into the core of the text, which I think is very necessary to just give a brief summary of what you've told us, to say that your definition of poverty, which is economic, has to go beyond economics to talk about institutional poverty, in Africa. And you are often, more often than not, conditioned to the minimalist perspective by not looking for more, just practicing subsistence economics, if I could just use that word, instead of looking for more. But you said that this is not sustainable within the economic framework because you're competing with Europeans who Euro maximalists, as to say that they crave for more, which I call greedy capitalism, is the bane.
Yeah.
One of the many reasons for this is the challenge of religion. You took us through the process of retribution. I mean, lawyers here will talk about the law of thought. And today we're talking about reparative justice. Of course, we are in the year that the year devoted to Africans and people of African descent through and these things are becoming topical today to say, within the framework of indigenous knowledge system, how do we define retribution? How do we define reparation? How do we define restitution? And this is all of our own intervention. The Matthew, I think you were talking about the talent in scripture you were reading out, of using there's enough and it will be taken away from them. And those who have more and are maximizing it, the chat is already hotting up, but I think at this point, I would love to invite Mr. Abdul-Muumin Sualihu to this text. You have the platform, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and good afternoon from Ghana. I know some of you are still in the morning somewhere, others probably are even in the evening. And I must say that it is a great opportunity that my former lecturer has given me to be part of this discussion. So a lot has been said regarding the Afro-minimalism. And what I just want to highlight, of course, I will look at my presentation will be hinge on two main areas. One, trying to add on to what the author has said regarding the African concept of or mindset, economic mindset, And the second aspect of my presentation would have to do with this has been proposed as a theory. Afro-minimalism has been proposed as a theory. And as a theory, what is the utility of that theory? Is it applicable in any discipline? So we need to appreciate that. And so for the first part, which is just adding on to what he has said, there's one, and let me also put it in context that whatever discussion that we do here is centered on the content of the book that we are discussing. And so the first item that I want to highlight here has to do with the cordyceps effect, which the author has explained greatly in the text. With this cordyceps effect, what it simply means is that it behaves like, how do I call it? Once it gets the host, it relies on the host as its food, and ultimately the host suffers, and that particular insect is liberated. And this is explained, this cordyceps effect is explained in the context of aid that we get from our so-called development partners. Our development partners give us aid or donations, sort of, and there are strings attached to it. A good example is given in the text where sometime in 2021, the European Union earmarked $25 million for the development of cocoa sector in Ghana, Ivory Coast, and Cameroon. The interesting thing is this: if you look at this as just a passive observer, you would think that they are helping us, and ultimately, these 25 million pounds, they have conditions, and those conditions we must obey. One, they need the raw material of cocoa, which if we had processed as various African countries, we can benefit more from it. But because we are dealing with people who have the maximalist mindset and we have just the minimalist mindset, we would just give the raw materials to them and they can use it to develop their industries. So this cordyceps effect has a lot in terms of the economic mindset of Africa. Let me give this example. You see, Dambisa Moya in her book, Dead Aid, talks about how the aid that comes to Africa doesn't actually benefit Africa. And we all know that these aid agencies come here to gather more data, which the author described as people who come here to explore. So they come here to gather more data, and when they gather more data, the Congress will come in to pounce on the resources that we have. And when they now succeed in pouncing on all the resources that we have, another group of people will come and say, we are apologizing for using you or for treating you the way we have treated you. So that is the first aspect that I want to talk about. The second one has to do with the moral entrampment. And that one is also a cultural conditioning of the African. The moral entrapment has to do with where people feel like within a family, especially we practice in Africa, largely we practice the extended family system. And so when one of us is climbing the ladder or the economic ladder, one way or the other, we come together, contribute to support that person's growth. And once the person gets to a level of, say, even middle income level, what the person has to do is to also pay back the support he or she got from the family. And this one is the moral entrampment. You have no way out but to go back and help others. That is why in Africa we have the dependency ratio is very high. And this is making us, retrogress in terms of our economic abilities. So the moral entrapment, this is what has been discussed in the text, but I want to add another component of this moral entrapment. Of course, in our various occasions in Africa, what I do know most is the western part of Africa, but I don't know much about eastern part of Africa. During our occasions, people literally are compelled to buy new dresses. Let's say a wedding or even a funeral, we are compelled to buy new dresses simply because when you had your occasion, people came and they had to come appear in new dresses. So this particular aspect affects us economically. In my experience in Turkey, when we were to celebrate the Eid festival, I went there in a grandiose style, whereas the Turkish came there in their normal outfit. I mean, the Eid grounds. And this is what we have been doing as part of Africa. The little we get, we try to impress people. The little we get, we try to impress people. And this is what the author has described as re-minimalism. Re-minimalism. I give another example based on my experience. Sometime in 2018, I traveled to Spain to undertake or participate in a youth project. And in my experience, a V8 type of car, this very costly vehicles. Of course, it could be that I stayed there for just 2 weeks, but I never saw any. Interesting enough, when I went to Vietnam to participate in similar program, one of the participants that I met in Spain came to Vietnam, and each time we were to move to a location of an activity, our host in Vietnam would would call for Uber. And the type of cars they use for Uber are the four-wheel drives. So, curious enough, I asked that my European friend, the one who came from Spain, why when I came to Spain in Malaga to be precise, I never saw a four-wheel drive. However, in Vietnam, we have some. The answer she gave was quite interesting. First, she said they don't have space to park such kind of vehicles, and we both laugh it off. But she went on to explain that these type of vehicles are very costly to manage because fueling them is very expensive. And so mostly farmers, listen to this. She said farmers use them. What does it tell you? It tells you that in her country, farmers are seen to be rich, while in Africa, per statistics, about 70% of us are into farming, and yet we still go to Vietnam, we still go to Thailand, we still go to US to import rice. So it means a lot. It is simply because we have a minimalist or the Afro-minimalist mindset. The last part that I want to talk about regarding the details from the text is the cultural ritualism. And this cultural ritualism is also linked to the issue of trying to impress people in whatever that we have. When the Europeans came to Africa, we tried to impress them with our gold and our natural resources. And dealing with people with such maximalist mindset, they quickly went back, mobilized, came, and started taking these resources. So that is, but the last part or the second part of my discussion, which I want to look at, is the utility of this particular theory, the theory of Afro-minimalism. Where can we apply it? Which discipline can we apply it? Of course, for me, I think that we can apply it in my area, for instance, literature. We can also apply it in cultural studies. But how do we apply it? The theory would help us to appreciate the economic mindset of the African, definitely, because a lot of illustrations have been given in the text that can help us to appreciate the fact that Africans have the subsistent mindset instead of going in for investment or investment that can last generations. So the theory can help us in explaining that. The theory can also help us in explaining the paradox, the economic paradox of African. The paradox here has to do with the fact that we have a lot of resources, but why do we still struggle? Why do we still struggle to the extent that we have to still go in for loans from our former colonial masters? And when those loans come, they give you conditions that would always inure to their benefit and not our benefit. I watched one TED video where a lady from Nigeria gave her accounts when she was working with World Bank. That one time they came to Africa to negotiate some loan with one African country. And all that she realized was that the people who were negotiating for that African country were just, they appeared so timid, and all they were requesting for was for the loan to be given to them. It means they were choking. They didn't have any way out but to still, to just get the loan. And according to her, when they went to Asia to negotiate similar loans, the Asians would take their time to read word for word, phrase for phrase, and sentence for sentence to understand every detail.
Maybe he can put off his video if he can hear us. But this is so okay. Please put off your video so that you can be
before
you're back.
they can sign or append their signatures to it. I hope my network. Okay, I think the 2 points for now is enough. So essentially, in terms of the utility, it helps us in understanding the economic mindset of the African, and the second one has to do with the economic paradox. So for now, I think I can pause here for Prof to also come in so that subsequently we can add to that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Abdul-Muumin. This is very, very nice and interesting. I'll just try for our audience to give a brief summary of your interventions. First, on the 8th issue, and as we were speaking, I just remembered the DRC issue. I think there was a truce between, was it Rwanda? And this had to do with raw materials and mineral resources, and this is somebody that is trying to make peace, and is part of being a mediator is to demand access. I mean, that was also the strategy in Ukraine, not very peculiar to Africa, where you're demanding in exchange for giving them war equipment, access to their resources, And I asked myself, we're talking about the free trade zone across Africa, borderless trade. When German companies are manufacturing products in Nigeria and selling to Ghana, where will the capital be domiciled, eventually? So this is part of our, Afro-minimalist perspective, of course, which leads us to being a raw material-driven economy. To say that these people come, Bill Gates is always here. He's now a skit maker, trying to promote GMOs all over the continent. And, some fake news about trying to develop IUDs for women and depopulate, which may be rumor, but it's becoming worrisome, the kind of interest, the salvific mission of this Euro maximalism or American maximalism or whatever I want to call it, within our own context of thinking that Africa needs saving. And we're saying, leave us alone. We do not need anyone, to save us. So these are very important issues that you are teasing out. The cordyceps effect is something that I think we need to expand and theorize more across different disciplines to say that what conditions I've been following keenly the invitation of the U.S. president to our African leaders, recently. To first it was the South African president. Yeah, after him came. Is it Mauritius? The Liberian president, whose English was so amazing that the US president had to make some comments on it. The Senegalese young guy who people thought was going to be a revolutionary. And you ask, what did they get from this exchange? A golf course demand in Senegal, the offer of resources on the table from Liberia, and to say, even the South African president was saying that you can help us to beef up our security sector. Nothing on capacity building or capability building for the industrial growth, of this independent nation. And so we have to ask, when we go to the negotiating table with this Afro-minimalist perspective, what do our leaders, come out with? And finally, you're talking about the cultural ritualism, which I love to say that the concept of what we can call in Nigerian English big manism, when you want to live beyond your means, because in this digital age, when you have a digital public that is so carried away by mass consumption, so you're looking at superstars driving Bugattis and Bentleys and stuff like that, owning private jets, and you feel that you have not just to live beyond your means, but even to go out borrowing and in debt generations in order to belong. These are very important and topical issues that I think are being teased out of the text. Sorry, Professor Alou, for taking some time. The platform is yours. We would love to hear your intervention. You are muted, sir. You are muted. I need to unmute you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, we can hear you now.
We can hear you.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Hello. Hello, everyone. This is a very, very good conversation that we're having out there. But let me begin by congratulating my dear roommate, former roommate, Dr. Kumbalonah. Once again, congratulations on publishing this very, very, thought-provoking, book. My intervention is going to go on the way the author kind of frame his reasoning, the way he develops the ideas and the points that he wants to make, and then the other thing is I'm going to tackle on this idea of explorer, conquer, and repenter that we have in the book. And then lastly, what kind of contribution in terms of, knowledge production on the continent can we get out of this, philosophy? Because I call Afro-minimalism a philosophy because of the way the author tries to, frame the whole idea behind the reason why Africans are where they are. And I like the example of the Fulani ethnic group, which I find very, very curious because I thought that the author was not very, very, exposed to that ethnic group as we are here in the Sahel region. Because I need to tell you that I am right now in Niger, and we all know what kind of situation we are living in these three countries: Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, in terms of our current political situation. So the book, as I have said earlier, if we look at the line, the line frame, how the author develops his ideas, it is very, inspiring in the way that from history to the present, we can see that initially Africans were not that poor. Now, my question maybe is, do Africans really know what is poverty? And the reason why I think I asked this question, I can still remember that was way back in 2010 when we were taking this class with Professor Goodwill, that is poverty, education, and development. And the question was, who come at least once in his life in contact with poverty? I was surprised to hear this kind of question, because over here it's not that we come into uncountable poverty, but we live it, we live with it, you know. So I kind of question myself, do many Africans really understand what is poverty before they can question, you know, the dismal condition in which they are living? And that is something that I think we need to ponder in order to better understand the point that the author is trying to make in this book. Because they enjoy a situation, as he said, uh, through their conditioning. And with conditioning, you know, comes from various factors, and among which we have religion, as he has said it. And now the next point that I want to you know, tackle, as I've said, it's that kind of dichotomy or binary opposition that we have between this idea of you know, building up social capital, which is part of the African, you know, understanding and ways of life, and the on the other hand, the building of this economic capital, which is from the Western world. Of course, as the author has mentioned it in the book, when these two kind of contradictory ideologies come into contact, the one who's going to suffer is the one who is much more Gentile, and that is the Africans. Now, the thing is, since we all know that it is not a bad thing at all, you know, to have that kind of human virtues, as the author calls it, how are we going to maintain that virtues, or those virtues of fairness, honesty, you know, empathy, all of them that the author has mentioned in the book, at the same time to, you know, to deal with our partner, that is the Western world? How are we going to negotiate while maintaining that kind of fairness? That is the one thing, and that's why, and if I can jump maybe to the contribution of the book, I will be kind of, you know, going back and forth. We understand that it is because most often those who are in the position of power, those who are supposed to go on the table of negotiation, they do not appreciate the point that the author wants to make in here. That is that kind of dichotomy between Afro-minimalism and the, you know, Euro maximalism. If most often our leaders, and I mean those who are, you know, out there within the decision-making system, can understand this kind of two elements, as you have just, Mr. Olayoku, you have just mentioned, like this three African leaders who went to the US recently, and we can see their behavior as a part of that, what Dr. Kumbalonah is trying to make here, that kind of, you know, minimalistic way of viewing life, and which can bring, you know, people to some points at you know, some degree of condescendence. I'm sorry to say that, but that's what I can see out there. So when we look at this things in that way, we can easily see, for instance, the reason why the whole region where I'm living right now is in a mess. Yes, if you take the recent you know, history of Mali, the French president at that time, the Toumani Touré, asked for the French to come in, and help his army fight, you know, the terrorists, as they call them, the terrorists. And now later on, the Malian government, after two coups, they realized that, hey, these guys are not there. They're not there for what we believe they are. And that's where the idea of explorer, conquer, and repenter is going to come in within our current situation in these three countries. people realize that they are there, as the book explained, the NGOs and all of the other, Western capitalist and imperialist agencies are within the region to explore what they need. And eventually, everybody come to understand now that the region is very, very rich in terms of natural resources. Now, how are they going to get to those natural resources? They need to bring in insecurity so that big armies with all of the necessary materials of mine exploration and exploiting all of these natural resources, they can do it without any problem. So they will have to bring many of their military personnel. And recently, that is like 1 year and a half, Niger has to chase the American military base, which was on a large area which the government doesn't have any control on. And all of this is what? It is this ideology of minimalism. It is because people, they come to the negotiating table with the mindset that they're not looking for something big. We just want you to come and help us survive. This is where I think the ideas that are developed in this book intersect with the current political situation of our country. So when I come to how this book, does contribute to a better understanding of our current situation, I would say that it helps us, in the liberation movements that are sought out there within the continent, because we can see that there is a link between the ideas that are being developed and what Frantz Fanon called the damned of the earth, the wretched of the earth, from Frantz Fanon. Why are we considered as that? It is because of this Afro-minimalism, this kind of minimalistic understanding of the world that we need to chase away from our mind. So when Mr. Abdul-Muumin says that we need to teach the book within literature classes and cultural studies, I would add to that. Yes, that is a very, very good thing to do. But I think this book needs to be taught on our university, African university campuses, not only in those two, areas of studies, but also in philosophy. This is part of African philosophy. It is also going to help a lot our political science, and students. And why not expose it to our current, political leaders in a way to show them that we don't need to limit ourselves to the minimum just for survival. No, we need to go, far, a little bit far, because we never know. It is unfortunate that we will have to do it in that way, but it's the world. It is the world today that imposes people to think twice in whatever they are doing. And I'm not saying this in order to abandon our human values, as the author mentioned it. No, we shouldn't. We do not have to abandon those, virtues, but we can kind of, bring the two options, together to make our people have a better life. I think that is where the contribution of this book becomes very, very significant. All right, thank you very much. I think the time is running. Thank you for your understanding. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Professor Alou, for your very wonderful contribution. It's important that you even gave us the context from which you speak, the Nigerian context. Of course, we have the Sahelian Alliance at the moment that is given the ECOWAS bloc and African Union a run for their money in terms of transnational or relations this time. Okay, you spoke about the binary, the idea of polarization between developing social capital as something that is African and economic capital as something that's Western, and how this undermines Africans. Of course, you spoke about, in a very important sense, how you spoke in a very important sense how Africans need to understand poverty. You asked the question when you started that do Africans really know what poverty is, to try to tease out this Afro-minimalist idea of Africans in dealing with some of these issues. More importantly, though, you linked it up to the context of Fanon, who is one of the whose theory of decolonization is something that is very relevant for our context today, to understand how do we navigate these current economic challenges that African or Black people, I think his intervention is just not for Africans, but even Black people across board, and this stuff that they face. And just to create a teaser, when you're speaking, I tried to look up the countries again that were invited to the White House. And it wasn't Mauritius, it was Mauritania, actually, Liberia, Senegal, of course, joined by Guinea-Bissau and Gabon. And you look at what economic significance do all of these countries have in terms of population, in terms of resources. And you wouldn't see anything that joins them together as a bloc, except the fact that there's another rising power from the East, which is China, which is a great player in all of their sectors. So beyond the West, we also have to compete with the East in today's world. And though the East, latching onto the old model of the Belt and Road Initiative, is claiming that it's trying to reinvent the old trade routes that I had before, not just in the economic dimension, but also when you talk about cultural people-to-people exchanges, which in itself is another debate entirely, but fits into Dr. Kumbalonah's idea of institutional poverty and not just economic poverty. Now we can talk about social or even cultural poverty when it comes to the idea of understanding the African context of navigating distance. Without further ado, let me just open. We have some questions already. So it's better. So the first question I would say was from, sorry, I don't know, I'm trying to scroll up. Cosmos Afram, I think. Was it Cosmos? Who was asking? No, I think it was after Cosmos. The person was asking who was how is the African condition within this Afro-minimalized perspective? Is it by us or by forces or from both of them? I also have a question where I asked that if you're saying that communalism is something that is African, then why do we complain about the kind of leadership that we have on the African continent? What is wrong with us with this concept of practicing communalism? And the third question, before we take others, will be, can you tease out the positive minimalism from Africans along the lines of Japanese minimalism? So it's something that, do we have this operational in other contexts apart from Africa? So, well, I'd like to attend to that before we take further questions. Any of the panelists can also join in. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's see. I would say the conditioning is both ways. For example, the religious aspects that I was talking about. This is so who have we sticking to our religious belief systems, even though we are dealing with someone who doesn't believe in it? And how do we see that person's religion, or religious philosophy? Why has Christianity become so popular in Africa? Partly because we've been conditioned to look down on ours and look up on theirs. So in some ways, that conditioning is from both the colonial, it's both a colonial conditioning, but also partly ours. So I think it is both ways. But I kind of approach this from the perspective that a lot depends on you. You allow yourself to be conditioned. So even if it's coming from external, at the end of the day, you take the decision on what to accept, what not to accept. So a lot of it depends on you, on us. Let's put it that way. Positive minimalism. There was a question, can you tease out positive minimalism? Yes, I think in the book, I do mention that there is a type of minimalism that is good. If you are trying to stay minimal or modest as a way of maximizing returns or gathering and expanding resources for something, for some sort of economic transformation, that is something good. But you cannot just be a minimalist or modest as a way of life, and that is just how it is. It's a frame of mind. If for you to have a positive minimalism, you should have some transformative economic mindset based upon which you are kind of taking steps, minimalist steps. You're taking all these steps that are sort of, you are living modestly, minimally as a way of gathering resources for that transformation. That is a good thing, right? But that's not what I was talking about in this book. I'm looking at minimalism that appears to be a natural part of our life. And not just that, but sometimes we don't even see it, to the point where it looks like we are just enjoying our lives as it is, enjoying the poverty within which we live, and even undervaluing what we have. And therefore we are easy to give it away. Okay. There was a question about communalism and leadership. That I didn't get that question quite clearly. Okay, I think I see here. Can you tease out? No. Okay, I'm not too sure of that question. So if you could repeat that question, I will be more than happy to respond to it. But before then, there's also this, there was a reference to the meeting that African leaders had with Trump, the African leaders who attended. And I think our host mentioned more specifically the Senegalese president. His situation just emphasizes the point I'm trying to make, that we used to criticize our leaders as, oh, they are older people, they are old, and using age as an excuse that they are old people, they don't care about the future of the people, and so that's why we are not going nowhere. Well, now we have a young person. It is not a question about age. It is a question about your state of mind. What kind of mind do you have? You can be young and have this mind that, no, let's have a frame of mind that actually maximizes our resources. Yeah, if you have that frame of mind, yeah, that is more transformative than you being old. If you are old and you have that frame of mind, good. But if you are young and you don't have it, it doesn't make sense to say that, okay, well, because you are young, we need you. Yeah, no. Some of these people who complain about age, and I'm not saying that age is not important. Sometimes you need an energetic person, someone with a new perspective on issues, or someone who, okay, well, let's just put it that way. Someone who has a better perspective on modern trends. But if the mind is framed in such a way that I'm trying to talk about, it doesn't matter if the person is young or old, it's just going to be the same. It doesn't matter if the person was educated abroad or not, it's just going to be the same. It doesn't matter if the person, it doesn't matter, even it doesn't matter gender. It doesn't really matter. So sometimes some of these issues that we sort of get agitated about, age, gender, this, educational level of the leaders. They don't always count if you are to operate with the same minimalist mindset. It won't work. And I think someone also asked a question about if I plan to do anything like turn it into a movie or a novel or something like that. I don't know. I really, as of now, I don't know. I'm completing a fellowship this year. So for now, my focus is finishing up with the fellowship program at West Virginia University. Once I'm done, I will think about what to do next. Whether an updated version, maybe converting into a movie or a novel or something of that. The idea is to make it available to as many people in different forms, to as many different forms as possible. All right. If there is any question that I missed, I'll be more than happy to respond to it. Thank you.
Can I say something regarding the question?
Yes, please.
Yes, the issue of positive minimalism that somebody asked. I think some answers have been provided in the text. I quite remember in the text we have where the author talks about the fact that Africans must trust but verify. Of course, this is according to what we can see we have in the text. This is a saying, a Russian saying, and that also is used as a policy, U.S. foreign policy. So Africans must trust, but they have to verify. This is so important because our world has become so interconnected that we cannot do without the West or the North America. So all that we need to do is to appreciate the angle from which they are coming from. Once we know that they have their maximalist mindset, we have to also develop same. Else, we would always negotiate and we would always suffer. And another important point that has been raised regarding solutions or positive minimalism has to do with the fact that Africans must be aware of the explorer, the conqueror, and that of those who would come pretend telling you that they are apologizing on behalf of their people for maltreating you. So the awareness is key, is very important. The fact that uh, I had interactions with someone just a few days ago, and she was telling me about her working with an NGO since in the late 1980s. She started as a cleaner, and she has moved through ranks to become a director. And all this while, what they get from the donors is that they ask them to gather data, indirectly telling you that they are exploring, trying to see the various parts of your resources that they can come and pounce on. So we have to be aware of the explorers, and we should also be aware of the conquerors. Once we are aware of this and put some systems in place, we should be able to resolve that. So that is what I just want to add regarding the positive minimalism.
Thank you very much. Professor Alou, do you have something to say?
I think they have said it all. This understanding of having this minimalist mindset is something that we really need to ponder on, as I've said earlier, to make people understand that we are in a world whereby fairness between let's say between the Western countries and the black people cannot hold. We just need to put forth our people's interest, how we're going to get a better share within that, exchange thing that is going on the world, and in the world, I'd say. And that is really what the whole book is trying to make as an argument, that we need to really understand what is going on so that we can go beyond this kind of survival strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Does anyone want to ask questions or just a question? If you raise your hand, then we can take it. Okay, otherwise I'll go again. So my question on leadership and leadership and communalism is the fact that what we see in Africa today, I think it's been explained as a stage of minimalism, trying to like appropriate the communal resources to yourself, and that's what I think we abounds in African leadership across board. If you check different countries today. But my question is, if you're saying that we need to change this Afro-minimalist mindset, how do we know when to stop in order to avoid the primitive accumulation that, of course, socialism talks about, and not to appropriate what belongs to the other? You know, how do we balance getting out of this Afro-minimalist mindset and not falling into the trap of hero maximalism, so that we don't end up impoverishing a large chunk of African population or Black people's population everywhere, while some people read themselves. There's a hand up, I guess. So you can speak, Mr. Igbe. We can't hear you if you are speaking. Okay, maybe I have to unmute you. Sorry. Let's see. Okay. But you can speak. I think you are not muted. Oh. No, we can't still hear you. Maybe Dr. Kumbalonah, you can answer the question while he tries to say. But if you can't hear, you can type your questions in the chat box so that I will take it. Thank you.
Okay, I think you make a very great point about why we have issues with our leaders if we believe in communal living. Well, yeah, but we look at even our political system itself. What kind of social system is it? We have a situation where we have this communal idea, but we are practicing a type of democracy that is not entirely based on social philosophy of life. So in some ways, it kind of creates a dual mental perspective for the African. On the one hand, the African is a minimalist person. On the other hand, the African is expecting the government to be maximalist. Bring this, do this for us. We need money. We need that. We need that. We need that. That kind of we need, right? We need. That is a maximalist demand, which is a good thing. If you are demanding it from your government, there's nothing wrong with that. But you yourself, sometimes that's why I say we represent the leaders we choose. So you yourself, remember that the leaders that you have selected are from the community that is very communalist minded, minimalist minded, right? So sometimes some of these criticisms are just because the power dynamics are different. The leader, the one criticizing the government or the leadership is upset that the government and its appointees are having benefits of maximalism. But so there should be a total, should I say, re-engineering of the mind to understand that, yes, and then now I will kind of dovetail this into a point that you made. At what point do we stop? Yes, I mean, at a point, I'm not saying that we should embrace maximalist virtues, even though there are no virtues, But what I'm saying is that we should, as long as you want to be a part of the whole global economic system, or even globalization generally, let me not just limit it to the economic system, globalization generally, you have to understand what position you are in and the position of the people that you're engaging with. What mentality do they have? What mentality are you also going in with? At the very least, if you understand how the person's mentality, you prevent the person from taking advantage of you. And that's a good thing, right? China will not allow anyone to come in and do whatever they want because they believe in themselves. Right? They have this maximalist mind, but at the same time, China maintains a very conservative communal system. That is the kind of awareness that kind of stage, that's where we have to be to sort of understand that, yeah, we can maintain our minimalist ideas or virtues or characteristics, but we have to understand how maximalism operates. So basically, I think my point here is that we should know how to operate based on whom we are dealing with.
Okay, thank you. We have hands up now, but let's go to Mr. Egbe first. I think I need to unmute people to allow them speak, to avoid people from bumping into these sessions. That's right. Mr. Egbe, can you try to speak now?
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes, I used my authority to ensure that we didn't bump into this session. Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you for your authority, and I hope that authority will be used to improve Africa. Okay, so but just I said, my question is coming from a very curious mind. From historical evidence, civilization began in Africa. I'm curious that the Europeans and of course the West haven't learned their new of course industrial revolution and all of those revolutions that happened, understanding that they wouldn't want to go back to make Africa another civilized location. They needed they needed to put a lot of strategy in place. So if you read books like how Europe underdeveloped Africa, all of the deliberate attempt to impoverish Africa or to save Africa, it calls for questioning. And my mindset, or that curiosity mind that I'm bringing up here, is it not possible that we are in a phase where the European strategy is working, just the same way at some point African strategy worked when Africa was the center of civilization? That maybe is a phase, because somehow somebody typed in the comment section, and I agree, we've got the problem, we've got the solution, and we are not able to implement it. Sincerely, we are not able to implement it. Let's not try to do the things that we cannot do. I'm thinking it's a phase. Let's just get to move on along the phase by, maybe you can call it a reversal of trend. Maybe we'll start to think about, rather than pushing forward, let's start to undo some of those European mentality in a way that will become more, as Peter Eke has written in his book, primordial. We are a primordial people. Even though today we begin to talk about civic nature and civic culture, our primordial sentiment had actually worked better for us. But who will want to go back to primordial environment? I'm not too sure anybody wants to do that. That was, I just wanted to put that on the table. Thank you very much, presenter, and of course, Dr. Philip. I'm honored.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Olaiwola.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Abobo and the other panelists for today's session. It's been quite informative and reawakening the sense of the concept of minimalism. The direction I want to take it is more like a comment and a question. The comment part is, if we look at well, of course, even when we are saying Africa is not necessarily one, Because if we look at the interplay of culture too, some historical facts have shown that some part of Africa seems to be affluent in their display of wealth and the likes of it. So the question would be, to what extent are we really minimalist in Africa? Is it in entrepreneurial drive? Is it in the wealth amassment? Or is it in the way that we dispense these funds and the materials that we have? So that's the part that I would like for us to interrogate. Because somehow I think we are quite affluent. Are we minimalist in acquiring or minimalist in spending? That's one. The other dimension to it would be, while we're talking about there's a thin line between that Afro-minimalism and going on the other side of it, which is the Western. When we interrogate it with the way corruption is, how minimalist are players in the West and Africa when we look at corruption. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nkushi.
Hi, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for the presentation as well as everyone's contributions. I actually also just wanted to add a comment, and it's a follow-on to what has just been said. In terms of the Afro-minimalism concept, I think that whilst in theory it can be true, in practice, I'm not entirely sure that we are collectively much more minimalistic than other societal groups, other than aside from the fact that maybe our development has taken a different trajectory to other regions that have also been colonized. So I think when we talk about leadership, there's been studies that were conducted by the University of Melbourne as well as Washington State University regarding information and access to information. As collectivist cultures, we tend to have within our languages as well as our societal structures an acceptance that leaders know everything, they are all knowing. So when it comes to our government, we were never trained or brought up to challenge. If you look at any African person who's outside of Africa, they will introduce themselves as Dr. So-and-so, or there'll be, 14 PhDs and so many letters after their name, because there's an understanding that somebody who is educated is knowledgeable, and we don't challenge that. Whereas in the West, their culture is, even their language is geared in such a way that they question everything. And when we have, as a generation, our generation that is coming up, this internet generation, started to gain access to information when we went online after the pandemic, once we started using social media and connecting with other Africans in the diaspora, it came to our attention that, oh, we have to challenge government. When we gained independence, they were told that you need to devalue your currencies. This is what you need to do. Your mineral resources are worthless. What is actually worthwhile is for you to all get educated. And the idea was that we would get educated so that we could build our resources and trade with them and give all of that was ours. We suffered the disadvantage that was described, where Chinese people don't have that same philosophy. They have a mindset that information belongs to everybody. We have, until we can change our understanding that information belongs to everybody, and your leader is not necessarily correct simply because they're a leader, then I think that what we describe as minimalism, it's not a voluntary choice to only be a subsistence farmer. It's that nobody has ever told you that Monsanto has come and bought your farm, your neighbor's farm, and all the 20 farms. When you find out that the title deeds have been sold off to a Spanish conglomerate or a Portuguese conglomerate, you then don't challenge your leadership to say, what about our land rights? What about our title rights? Because we were never told that this is something that we can do. So I think that's just an addition to the idea that our minimalism is not voluntary. It's related to how much information we have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I need to quickly chip in that there are two questions in the chat that are related to the ones that have been asked. So let me just tease them out. I'll just summarize. The first is about the old empire. I know we have some people who would like to romanticize Egypt, based on and the great African empires. So the question is, how do we relate this concept of Afro-minimalism to like the fall, of these ancient empires? Then the second one is, what are the foreigners, donors doing for us that Africans cannot do, for ourselves? Why do we need them to keep perpetuating some kind of salvific mission and restricting us to this Afro-minimalist perspective?
Good. The wonderful questions. I don't know if I can remember all of them and if I can respond to all of them, but I'll try to go through as many as I can. I'll start off with the last speaker, Nkuchi. I think she raised a very good point that Afro-minimalism is not something, people are not consciously sitting down saying that they want to be Afro-minimalist. No, it is the result of so many factors. That's why I'm saying it's a conditioning. It's a result of so many factors that kind of put together, puts us at a disadvantage as Africans. And a very good example that she referred to, not questioning authority. Where is that culture from? Authority figures are supposed to be all-knowing. Where is that culture from? It's from within us. It's a very popular African philosophy. So if you move that as a cultural practice to a political system or a democratic political system, you're going to do the same to your leaders. You look at your leaders as all-knowing, all-powerful, all everything. So you don't really question them, right? So perhaps that's a very good point, that one of the ways of undoing Afro-minimalism is seeking information, understanding that, as she said, that information is for everyone, that we can also look for information ourselves and don't have to rely on some single person or single institution to provide us with information that we need. So in some ways, I think this whole digital revolution that's ongoing, maybe it might be one way of another opportunity to revise how we see information, right? And the politics around who controls it and who has it and who's best and all of that. Information should be democratized so that we can all assess it. And when we are well informed, we can take better decisions. We can ask for accountability based on actual facts, and I think that will be a very helpful thing. So that's a good contribution. As far as Egypt, the empires of of Africa and how it connects to this, I did not make any. My research did not include any. I didn't look at that in my work, except to one reference that I made was to the I think it was Mansa Musa's trip to Mecca, in which he spent a whole lot of money, a whole lot of gold, and shared freely. Now, remember, so again, this Afro-minimalist idea of generosity, sharing things and being hospitable to people and all of that. So I think it was just that reference that I made to Mansa Musa's trip to Mecca and the expenditure, the resources that he used to undertake that journey. So yeah, honestly, I don't, I'm not able to fully respond to that question because I did not look at that as an integral part of my work. And then there was a question, in some ways also a phase, whether a comment, whether this whole thing is not the phase where Europeans work or European strategy is working. Maybe it's true. But Afro-minimalism, what I'm trying to say is that how are we as Africans preparing for the next phase? Because if this is a phase, let's just go according to the point of view of the question, and say that this is actually the phase of, or let's just simply put it this way, that this is the time of Europeans. Fine. Until something challenges it, it's going to continue. So what are we doing to challenge it? And secondly, if it leaves, so this phase fades away, something has to replace it. Are we preparing ourselves to be a replacement? So I think that's the kind of that's the way I'm looking at it. How are we preparing to become a replacement? That's how I look at it. What are we minimalists in terms of entrepreneur or how we spend? I think in both ways. Entrepreneur, and this is the thing. Africans have been conditioned to so much desire and fight to be accepted into European economies. Meanwhile, we can do more within. Right? We can do more within. So in terms of entrepreneurship drive, we even start off wrong by just picturing someone else's economy. And this is an economy in which someone has better control of it. They can decide what you bring in, what you cannot bring in, and all of that. Why don't you do more within? Right? Even though, yes, I understand that even within there is still some difficulties, and that's because of colonialism and all these ideas of state sovereignty and all of that, and alliances to European powers. So yeah, I think unless I missed any other question.
Can I say something regarding one of the questions?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Go on.
Yeah. So one of somebody has written on a question that can Africa survive without aid? And this is very interesting to me. I just want to use three examples, three countries, or from history, and then two countries as example. The Egyptian civilization, they say necessity is the mother of invention. When along the way Egyptians were facing challenges, they resorted to their time modern technology in their farming system, and that is what made Egypt, as we have heard of it, as a very flourishing civilization. So once we don't have it, we would surely find a way to survive. Necessity, they say, is the matter of invention. I give an example, Sudan. Some time back, Sudan was denied access to wheat from some countries. I don't want to mention those countries. And they went into serious farming of wheat to the extent that they could also even export some. It is simply because they were denied that. And once they know that they don't have access to wheat and they need it in their account, they will always work, they will work to get it for their people. Another example has to do with Nigeria. Of course, we still know that Nigeria import rice heavily, but just in the recent past, we've heard of stories where Nigerian government has supported many farmers to go into rice farming. And because of that, they have been able to make a lot of produce to reduce the rice imports. So what it simply means is that once we are determined, we should be able to survive without aid. Aid, of course, doesn't help us. It is when you know that you don't have anything to rely on, then that is when you would struggle to get your own. So this is just the intervention that I want to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have, our time is fast spent, but I think because of the nature of the discussion, we can take one or two more questions if, so that it won't be as if we are depriving people. Okay. It's like there's none. I'll just add that I'm so sad that you mentioned Nigeria and the rice production, because what came to my mind was a video I saw recently that Nigeria was actually exporting ginger. Yeah, if you can hear me, I had to like switch. Then came a foreign organization that Nigeria used to import ginger in the past. Then came a foreign organization that wanted to improve the species of ginger. And after the laboratory tests and exchanges, Nigeria has turned from a ginger exporter to an importer of ginger, based on the experiment. And there's news that a lot of these ginger farmers had to commit suicide. This is one of the hazardous effects of Afro-minimalism, that we were talking about, within this context. So it is on this note that I would love to thank our author, Dr. Abobo Kumbalonah. At short notice, we were able to put this together, and I'm happy that it turned out the way it is. It's been one of our longest sessions, because of the topical nature of it and the innovative idea of Afro-minimalism and how we'll still try to manage this context. Mr. Sualihu and Dr. Alou, we thank you very much for joining us at short notice as well to help us discuss this very important text. And we hope that this is going to be a way of taking the discussion further. I think this is too important for us to take in like just 2 hours. This is supposed to lead us to the future, like you're talking about. And I know in Africa at the moment, there's a lot of discussions or debates around future studies, a lot of departments springing up across different contexts to talk about defining or designing the kind of future that we want, not just in terms of technology, but can we revisit things that we did in the past, our social capital, what our communal nature is, and how do we navigate the current realities of the world today along these heritages that we may have had in the past. So on that note, that I would love to thank everyone that has joined us. I think I should give the panelists and the author a chance to say one last word before we just close the session.
I would just say
so
thank
we'll
you
go
to
with
you
you first, Dr. Kumbalonah. Yeah.
Thank you so much to you personally and to the group for inviting me to be a part of this author spotlight event. I have enjoyed it. Let's just put it that way. And I'm hoping that that the discussion will continue. I also want to thank my co-panelists for agreeing to join me on this journey. It's a journey that they didn't choose. I just pulled them into it. So I thank them so much. And I really appreciate everyone who was able to make it. Your contributions actually enriched the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Alou, you go first now. Professor Alou, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oleoku, for hosting the event. And thanks, Dr. Kumbalonah, for, having trust in our, modest person to come as a co-host of the event. It is as discussant, I'd say. It has been a pleasure. And thank you to everyone for, enriching the discussion. I think the book is it's just so it talks to our current situation. Actually, when I was reading it, I was like, oh, how come that Dr. Kumbalonah knows all of these things that are happening around, especially in the Sahel region? Where we are actually experiencing something that maybe those who are very, very far from Africa cannot really, grasp. So it is a very, very good thing to do this kind of discussion. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Sualihu Abdul-Muumin.
Yes, so I just want to also thank everyone for being part of this discussion. And one interesting thing that I need to add is that the book is so insightful, with so many examples and illustrations. In my private discussions with Dr. Kumbalonah, I told him that reading this text, I compared that to Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power and that of Noam Chomsky's How the World Works. In these books, you will see a lot of illustrations that make the book, that makes the story easier for you to follow. This is what I have seen in this text, and I encourage everyone to do well and get a text for themselves. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. On that note, we thank everyone, and we look forward to hosting you at our subsequent events. We're going to have the personality lecture in October, and it's going to be focused on defining Africa's future. Don't miss it for anything. In the meantime, have a very pleasant, or have very pleasant moments for the rest of the day. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.